What's good, y'all? What's good, y'all? This your boy 13th Disciple, 13TH, aka the Young John the Baptist. You know what it is. Grab your Bible, grab your pad, grab your pen, grab your highlighter. We about to dive into this gospel, and you about to get this work. It's time for another episode of Disciple Me. Let's go! All right, y'all, let's get it. We're gonna go over 3 scripture passages today. I want you to go to Matthew chapter 16, verse 13 through 16. Then we're gonna head over to John chapter 11, verse 23 through 26 in the New Living Translation. And we're gonna finish up at John chapter 5, verse 1 through 6 in the New Living Translation. Let's read. Matthew chapter 16, verse 13 through 16. When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" I want you to park right there, and I want you to circle and highlight that part. It says, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" Well, they replied, "Some say John the Baptist, some say Elijah, and others say Jeremiah or one of the prophets." Then he asked them, "But who do you say I am?" I want you to circle and highlight that part as well. "But who do you say I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." Let's continue to read. John chapter 11, verse 23 through 26 in the New Living Translation. And it reads, Jesus told her, "Your brother will rise again." Yes, Martha said, "He will rise when everyone else rises at the last day." Jesus told her, "I am the resurrection and the life. Anyone who believes in me will live, even after dying. Everyone who lives in me and believes in me will never ever die." Do you believe this, Martha? I want you to circle and highlight that part. Do you believe this, Martha? All right, y'all, so now we're gonna finish up at John chapter 5, verse 1 through 6, and it reads, Afterward, Jesus returned to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish holy days. Inside the city, near the sheep gate, was a pool of Bethesda with 5 covered porches. Crowds of sick people, blind, lame, or paralyzed, lay on the porches. One of the men lying there had been sick for 38 years. When Jesus saw him and knew he had been ill for a long time, he asked him, "Would you like to get well?" I want you to park right there and circle that part as well and highlight that part. Would you like to get well? All right, y'all, so let's break this thing down. What you're noticing as you read these 3 scripture passages, you're noticing that Jesus is asking people questions. And as he asks them questions, people are going to give him a response. Today, we're gonna be talking about relationships. Today's message is called Ask Questions. Too many of us are jumping into relationships with people and we're not asking enough questions up front. So I wanna encourage you as you watch this message, as you start to get into a relationship with someone, make sure you're asking questions. I'm gonna give you a whole bunch of questions that you should be asking just to make sure that you're not wasting time with a non-potential. All right, y'all, so I'm gonna give you a breakdown or an analogy to help you understand why you should ask questions so you don't waste time with non-potentials. So I work in the Medicare field, right? That's something I do on the side besides doing ministry. And what happens is in Medicare, you have to make sure that you ask some upfront questions so you don't waste time with non-potential people that you can't enroll. You have to ask upfront questions like, do you have Medicare Part A, which is your hospital? Do you have Medicare Part B, which is your medical? And do you have an enrollment period? Have you lost coverage from any type of job? Have you recently moved? Are you new to Medicare? Do you have Medicare and Medicaid? You ask these questions up front so you don't waste time with a non-potential customer that you can't enroll, because you could have been on the dialer catching a call with someone that is able to enroll. I can remember a time that I was on the phone with this lady for like an hour, and I was hot, y'all. I was mad hot at the end of the call. When I got ready to do the enrollment, I'm like, go get your Medicare card. And I found out she only had Medicare Part A. She did not have Part B. And I was like, bruh, how did I miss that? I wasn't listening at the beginning of the call and I didn't catch it. And I wasn't asking enough questions at the beginning to find out if she was gonna be able to enroll in the end. That was an hour of my life that I could not get back. Many of you are spending years and years in a relationship with someone, and you find out later on, dang man, this ain't the right one. It's because you did not ask any questions up front before you got into a relationship. You was like, oh, she looked good. Oh, he looked good. We get goosebumps every time we're around each other. But the reality is, you should have been asking some upfront questions before you got deep into that relationship and created a soul tie. So today we're gonna be talking about asking questions and the importance of asking questions. Jesus shows us a pattern of asking questions, and all throughout the Bible, you can find God asking questions. Is there anything too hard for the Lord? Can these bones live? God is always asking questions. So you and I, as we're moving into going from single to dating, we need to make sure that we're asking questions. All right, y'all. So one of the first criteria before getting into a relationship, you need to make sure that you understand what your purpose is, what your calling is, and why God put you on this earth. Because if you get into a relationship with someone that does not know their purpose, does not know their calling, and they're not operating in what God put them on this earth to do, what's gonna happen is later on, if you give your life to Christ, later on, if you discover why you were put here and you find out what your purpose and calling is, and if that person that you hooked up with is not in alignment with that purpose, then all of a sudden you have to make a choice. Do I choose this person or do I choose my purpose? You have to make sure that you ask questions up front, and you make sure that you understand what that person's purpose is and that you understand your purpose so it doesn't cause any type of tension later on. Make sure you understand why you were put here. If you remember, Adam was already working. Adam was already naming the animals. And then God said, it's not good for man to be alone. And he brought him a helpmeet. He brought him a helpmeet after he was already operating in purpose, after he was already operating and what he was put on this earth to be able to do. So you want to make sure that before you hook up with someone, you need to make sure you understand your purpose. Why would God give you a helpmeet if you don't even know what you're supposed to be doing, y'all? Like, why would God give you a man of God if you don't even know what you're supposed to be doing? And one thing you have to understand too, men, if you want a wife, look, you need to make sure you understand your purpose, because you're gonna frustrate that woman. And the reason why you're gonna frustrate that woman is because she was called and anointed to be able to help you. But if she does not understand your purpose or your calling because you don't know it, what is she gonna help you with? So now she can't function and operate in what she was called to do and walk beside you simply because you don't know what you're supposed to be doing. Women, I wanna encourage you, first thing you should ask a dude, do you know your purpose? Do you know your calling? Like, what is your vision for your life? What are your goals in life? What are your dreams in life? So you can see if you're the right person to help push and to be able to help promote whatever he's called to do on this earth. All right, y'all, I'm about to give you 10 questions that you might want to ask before getting into a deep relationship with someone and before you create a soul tie. The first question I want you to ask, do you have a relationship with Jesus? That was one of the first questions that I would always ask. I would ask, like, what's your relationship with Christ like? Because what happens is, if you living for the Lord and they're not living for the Lord, you're unequally yoked, and you're gonna find yourself compromising in a lot of areas in your walk. I remember when I was in my early 20s, I would ask people up front, you feel me? And I would observe and I would watch to see, like, do they know the Lord? Because I don't wanna waste my time with a non-potential, because I understood my purpose, I understood my calling, and I understood I couldn't just marry anybody. I don't care how big your booty is, I don't care what you look like. If you are not called by God to walk beside me and be able to align with the vision that's on my life and the call, the purpose on my life, I'm not finna waste my time with you, y'all. So what happened was, when I was in my early 20s, I would kind of peep game and be like, nah, you ain't really got no relationship with Jesus. Like, nah, like, you go to church, but I don't know about you. And what would happen was, I would feel lonely at times. But because I was in sync with God, I was in tune with God, I was fasting and praying during that time, I was able to make sure that I didn't settle. Listen, kings and queens don't settle, they choose. Kings and queens don't settle, they choose. You are the cream of the crop. Don't settle for no dude, don't settle for no girl. Don't get so thirsty and so desperate in this season that you just choose anybody. You need to make sure you wait on God. I want to encourage you right now, those out there that are waiting, those out there that are celibate, I want to encourage you, wait. I waited for like 4 years. What you say? Yeah, 4 years, bruh, 4 years. I was smashing, wilding out, and all of a sudden I got saved, and I was celibate for like 4 years plus, y'all. Me and my wife, we waited as well till we got married. Y'all don't even understand, bro. Like, for real. Like, peep game. That was hard. That was hard. But God kept me, you feel me? God kept me in that season. And I was not going to settle just for anybody. So I speak to a dude right now. I speak to a female out there right now. My brother, my sister, I know it's hard. Hold on. Hold on. And especially my brothers, hold on, bruh. I know it's hard. You better go to the gym, do some weights, bruh. You better go on a long walk, take a cold shower, because it's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. The temporary satisfaction of sex is not worth it, y'all. So listen, I want to encourage you right now. Make sure you find out, do you really have a relationship with Jesus? Not if you're spiritual. I want to make sure that you really have an authentic relationship with Jesus. That's question number 1. All right, y'all. So question number 2. You want to ask questions about his relationship with his father and mother, and vice versa. You want to ask questions about her relationship with her father or with her mother. Because if the father wasn't there and there was abandonment issues, that's something that you're going to have to minister to. That's something that you have to take notes, and you have to realize why she may have certain triggers, why she may act certain ways, because she might have dealt with rejection. She might have dealt with abandonment. You don't know what she dealt with without having a father in her life or even having a mother in her life. You need to make sure you understand what is their relationship like with the father and what is their relationship like with the mother. And you need to understand what the father or mother may have had struggles with or battle with, because chances are there may be some generational things that your wife or your husband might be dealing with, and you won't know up front unless you ask questions. So make sure you understand the family tree. Make sure you understand who their father was, who their mother was, because a lot of things that I deal with, I didn't find out until I got married. And then I began to ask my mom questions like, what was my dad like? Because my dad and I didn't really have a close relationship like that. So I began to ask her questions like, what was my dad like? Why did your marriage not work out? And the reason why I want to know why your marriage didn't work out, because I want my marriage to be successful. So I started asking questions. What was he like? What was your relationship like? These are things you want to ask up front, because a lot of things sprung up in my marriage as I went throughout my marriage, and I realized, dang man, like, where's this coming from? Why am I this way? And my mom began to tell me certain things about my father, so I knew how to be able to break that stuff in prayer time by asking questions. All right, y'all, here's question number 3. Make sure that you get to know his family or her family and ask questions. Ask questions. Ask questions. Make sure you get around his friends and ask questions so you can really find out who you're really dealing with. And when you ask the family questions, it allows you to really dig in and really understand who you're about to make covenant with, who you're about to create this soul tie with. It allows you to really understand who you're really dealing with, because people show you who they want to show you. I'm gonna say it again. People show you who they want to show you. So you wanna make sure that you're really getting to know his family, that you're really getting an opportunity to understand who his family is and who his father and who his mother is. So that way you can see what you're marrying into, because a lot of people are marrying into a lot of mess that they did not know they were gonna get involved in until later. So make sure you understand the father, make sure you understand the mother and their background and what stuff they may have dealt with, because your spouse may be dealing with that too because of generational curses, and make sure you understand the family. All right, y'all, so here's question number 4. You wanna make sure that you ask questions about sex. Make sure you ask questions about their past. Maybe not on the first date, maybe not the second or the third, but you wanna make sure that you're asking questions about their sexual past. Why? Because when my wife and myself got married, listen, y'all, I was a hoe. I'm gonna say it straight up, bro. I was hoish, y'all. I had no experience when it came to dating, y'all. I had no experience when it came to being intimate. So when I got in my relationship with my wife, I did not know how to hold hands. I did not know how to cuddle. I did not know how to be intimate. And the reason why is because no one was ever there to teach me. So all I was used to was, hey, it's 12 o'clock, what you doing? Hey, it's 12 o'clock, finna hit you up with this text. All I knew was smashing, all I knew was porn, so I did not know what it was like to have an intimate, real relationship. So my wife had to walk me through that process, y'all. And my wife, she's very gracious, she's very patient. God bless her. I don't know any other woman that could have dealt with me. But listen, she had to really help me understand, look, George, let's just hold hands, let's cuddle. This is what intimacy is. This is how you send text messages throughout the day to get me to a place of wanting to have sex. You have to learn how to be intimate. So I did not know how to do that. So one of the questions you want to ask your spouse before you actually become engaged and get in that relationship, you want to make sure that you ask like, hey, did you ever have struggles with porn? Because if that man has only watched porn all his life and he jumps into a relationship with you, he's not gonna know what intimacy is. He's not gonna know what real love is. He's not gonna know what affection is. All he's gonna know is trying to bust it down. So you need to make sure, hey, have you ever struggled in this area? And then you also wanna make sure that you ask like how many people you been with, you know what I'm saying? Like, what's your body count, you feel me? And you wanna make sure you ask the girl the same thing. Listen, I know this is a hard subject, but my wife and I, listen, before we got real close, we sat down one day and we had a real conversation, y'all. We sat down with papers and we sat down and she wrote down her list of every person she ever messed with. I wrote down my list of every person I ever messed with, whether it's a kiss or whatever. We wrote everything down and then we prayed and we asked God, we renounced these soul ties. We renounced these soul ties. And we took a lighter and we burnt up these papers that had all these names on it. And we did not hold each other's past against each other. We simply took that and we recognized, God, this is what we did in our ignorance. We're sorry, we repent, and we burnt that thing up and we got rid of our soul ties, y'all. It's very important that you understand your partner's sexual past so that way you don't jump into a relationship and you having sex with Monica, you having sex with Rashika, you having sex with Rodnika, you're having sex with all these people because of these soul ties that have not been renounced. So make sure you understand their sexual past. Now, another thing I want to break down real quick as we're talking about this sex question, you need to understand that in Genesis, you realize that Jacob worked 14 years for Rachel. Listen, y'all, women. If he is not willing to wait, he does not love you. I'm gonna say it again. If he is not willing to wait, he doesn't love you. Look at me. If he is not willing to wait, he does not love you. Listen, my wife, when we got together, I said, look, I'm not having sex till I get married. I'm waiting until I get married. And we waited a year and a half, almost 2 years, y'all. And the reason we did is because I actually cared. I actually had a genuine desire to be with her. So we waited. So understand this, women. If he loves you, he will wait. All right, y'all, so here's question number 5. It's kind of a tie-in to what I said at the beginning, but we're gonna reiterate it in question number 5. Make sure you understand what that man's vision is, what that man's purpose is, and what that man's calling is, and vice versa. You need to make sure, men, that you understand her purpose, her calling, and make sure you understand why she was put here on earth, because you two will frustrate each other if you're not in alignment and if you guys are not supposed to be together with what God puts you on this earth to do. So women, you're gonna frustrate yourself if you do not understand what you're supposed to be helping with. And men, you're going to frustrate yourself hooking up to a female that's not called to help you. So make sure, find out what their vision is, find out what their purpose is, find out what their calling is, and make sure, is this a God thing or is it a good thing? Because there's a good thing and there's a God thing. And too many of us are hooking up with people because it's a good thing. But I question you, is it a God thing? All right, y'all, so here's question number 6. You wanna make sure that you're watching the person that you're about to get into a relationship with. Make sure you're watching their worship and their prayer life. Because a man that cannot be intimate, a man that cannot weep before his father, a man that cannot be able to shed tears, a man that's not emotional, a man that has no prayer life, you're gonna have a very hard time with him being intimate with you. And the reason why is because he hasn't first learned how to be intimate with his Heavenly Father. And vice versa. The woman is gonna have have problems being intimate with you, man, because of the simple fact that she does not know how to have an intimate relationship with her father. That's why I said you gotta find out, did she even have a relationship with her dad? Because a lot of times that can affect your relationship because of the simple fact she might be dealing with trust issues and all type of stuff because of her father not being there. But make sure you ask questions about their prayer life. Make sure you watch their worship life just to kind of see like, man, like, do you really have a worship and prayer life? Listen, women, a man that is not being led by Christ cannot lead you. I'm gonna say it again. A man that is not being led by Christ cannot lead you. He will only lead you to himself. And if he leads you to himself, that's dangerous. Make sure he's being submitted and make sure he's being led by his heavenly Father before he ever tries to lead you. All right, y'all, so here's question number 7. We need to ask practical questions as well. Not just a whole bunch of spiritual stuff, but we need to ask practical questions as well. So question number 7, do you have any kind of debt or any type of student loans? You need to make sure before you're connecting with the person and saying, I do you have any debt? What are your spending habits like? Do you know how to budget? Find out what their past history was like when it came to finances. Really understand their financial thought process when it comes to money, because one of the things that mess up marriages is money and sex. 2 things that'll mess up a marriage. Money and sex. I'm gonna say it again, money and sex. And if he has bad spending habits or she has bad spending habits, you guys are gonna bump heads and you guys are gonna get into a lot of arguments because of the simple fact you both view money differently. So make sure you ask questions. Do you have any debt? Do you have any student loan? And ask yourself, are you willing to join into a relationship with this person based upon them struggling and having bad debt history and be able to work with them through that? Or is it something where you're like, nah, I don't think I want to mess with you? So ask questions about finances, ask questions about how they view debt, ask questions about how they view credit cards, ask questions about, do you have any student loan debt? Ask questions about money. All right, y'all, so here's question number 8. Make sure you ask questions. Do you lease a car? Do you own a house? Make sure that you're asking these questions so you know, do they have a mindset of lease or own, rent or own? So find out, do you have a house? Do you own a house? Are you renting an apartment? Or are you leasing a car? Or are you paying payments? Or are you at a place to where you own your car? Make sure you ask questions so you can understand their mindset. Because if you're a person that likes to own and they're a person that likes to rent, you might bump heads. Make sure you find out, are they a renter or are they an owner when it comes to their mindset? All right, so question number 9, make sure you ask questions. Do you want to have kids, and how many kids do you want to have? Because if you want to have kids and she doesn't want to have kids, or vice versa, you guys are going to bump heads there too, because of the simple fact that you want to have kids but she doesn't, or she want to have kids and you don't. You need to make sure that you're asking those questions and make sure you understand that you guys are in agreement with how many kids you want to have and if you want to have kids at all. So here's question number 10. It's not so much a question as much as it is an observation. I want you guys to get into an argument. Yep, I want you to have a disagreement. Yep, I said it. I want you to have an argument. I want you to have a disagreement, because you need to know who that person really is when they're not all happy. You need to make sure you know who that person is when they flesh start acting up. So make sure that you understand who that person is when they're not in their best self. You need to make sure you get in an argument. Make sure that you have a disagreement. I'm not saying just do something stupid and just all of a sudden, you know what I'm saying, just make him mad for no reason and create an argument, but give the relationship time and wait for a disagreement and wait to see how you guys handle that and wait to see what type of responses she or he gives before you move forward. Because you might find out he may be verbally abusive, or she might be verbally abusive or physically abusive. You never know. So make sure you give the relationship time so that way you know who you're actually dealing with. Maya Angelou said, when people show you who they are, believe them. I'm gonna say it again. When people show you who they are, believe him. So if he act out of character or she act out of character, believe them. And don't get too deep into a relationship and ignore caution signs. Ignoring those caution signs can mess you up later on in life. Pay attention to caution signs. All right, y'all. So as we wrap this thing up, one of the things I want to encourage you is stop looking for a wife or a husband based upon looks. That's the reason you're still single, because you waiting for that light skin, brown skin, dark skin, big booty, big breast, look like she a video vixen. You're waiting for some dude that got 6 figures and he got everything together and he balling. You're waiting for the person of your dreams, which is nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with dreaming, but you need to also make sure that you're not setting your expectations like way so high that you're in a place to where now you single because you expecting the perfect person to come show up on your porch when the reality is you ain't perfect. So why are you looking to make somebody perfect or wait for somebody perfect if you ain't perfect? You have to be able to love a person with their flaws and all. You have to be able to love a person when they wake up and their breath stink and they got crust in their eye and they got crust on their lips. You need to make sure that you're loving people on their off days as well. So don't be looking to get in a relationship based upon just looks. Let's read a couple scriptures real quick as we wrap up. In 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 6 through 7, it says, "When they arrived, Samuel took one look at Eliab and thought, 'Surely this is the Lord's anointed.' But the Lord said to Samuel, 'Don't judge by his appearance or height, for I have rejected him.' The Lord doesn't see things the way you see them. People judge by outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." Let's continue to read. Judges chapter 14, verse 1 through 3, and the New Living Translation. "One day, when Samson was in Timnah, one of the Philistine women caught his eye. When he returned home, he told his father and mother, 'A young Philistine woman in Timnah caught my eye. I want to marry her. Get her for me.' His father and mother objected. 'Isn't there even one woman in our tribe or among the Israelites you could marry?' They asked. 'Why must you go to the pagan Philistines to find a wife?' But Samson told his father, 'Get her for me. She looks good to me.'" So the first two things you're noticing is that Samuel goes and finds a new king, and when he goes to find a new king, he tries to find everybody that was tall, that was well built, and God was like, "Nah, that ain't it." And then you also notice that Samson, when he chooses his wife, he's looking at, "She looked good to me. Let me marry her." You don't want to marry just for looks, y'all. It has to be deeper than that, because as you read in Proverbs chapter 31, verse 30, and the New Living Translation, it reads, "Charm is deceptive and beauty does not last, but a woman who fears the Lord will be greatly praised." So that lets me know that your wife at 25, she's not going to look the same way at 45. Your husband at 25 is not going to look the same way at 45, which means that there must be a deeper connection than looks, y'all. Don't just choose someone based upon looks. It has to be a deeper spiritual connection. And I encourage you, don't have sex and create soul ties before you actually get to know that person. Get to know that person first, because sex can ruin stuff. Trust me, I've been there. Now, here's a little nugget that I want to give you in regards to looks, though. I know I said don't pay attention to looks, but you really got to be mindful too, women. You can't be expecting a man and walking around the store with a bonnet and your slippers on. Like I'm saying, like how you supposed to be like dressed up looking for a king or in the market looking for a king and you got a bonnet on your head and some slippers. And Ruth chapter 3, verse 3, it reads, "Now do as I tell you, take a bath and put on perfume and dress in your nicest clothes." She didn't have on a bonnet, y'all. She didn't have on no bedroom slippers. When she was getting ready to meet Boaz, she made sure that she dressed her nicest and had on some perfume. She was listening to her mother-in-law, Naomi, and made sure that she was dressed up and that she smelled good when she was presenting herself to try to find a king. So if you're trying to find a king in this season, make sure your appearance is on point. And men, make sure your appearance is on point as well if you're actually trying to get a queen. Don't just step out the house looking any type of way. So the last thing I want to wrap this up with, y'all, I want to talk about fasting and why it's so important when you're in your early 20s and your early 30s or whatever age you are. You want to make sure you're fasting, because what that does, it allows you to have increase of discernment and allows you to get your emotions and your feelings and all those butterflies out the way so you can be able to judge correctly. The girl I was talking to before I married my wife and got into a relationship with my wife, I really liked this girl. She was pretty. I mean, she was really fine, y'all. But the reality is, I could recognize that she was not a part of the calling and the vision on my life. And so what happened was, one night I went to her house and we got into prayer. And I said, "Pray for me." At first she was very hesitant, didn't want to pray for me, but I was like, "I really want you to pray for me," because I wanted to see what her prayer life was like. As we joined hands and we began to pray, all of a sudden I just felt like so weird. I was like, nah, like this ain't it. This ain't it, y'all. We ain't vibing. And so I stopped talking to this young girl, and it was hard, y'all. I literally had to disconnect and not answer her calls, not answer her texts. I really had to disconnect from her because I realized that my flesh wanted to be with her, but my spirit was like, nah, she not the one for your assignment. You have to understand, you don't want to just hook up with anybody. You need to make sure that you hook up with someone that is in alignment with your assignment. I'm gonna say it again. Make sure you're hooking up with someone that is in alignment with your assignment. And if you don't know what your assignment is, do not align yourself with just anybody and settle. All right, y'all? So make sure that you're fasting during this time, that you're single, to make sure that you're getting all those goosebumps out of the way. Now, I wanna read one more thing here, y'all. Proverbs chapter 14, verse 12, New Living Translation. And it reads, there is a path before each person that seems right, but ends in death. So it may feel right, it may seem right in the early stages of the relationship, but give it time and fast and pray, seek godly counsel before you get too deep into the relationship and waste time with an unpotential. Always remember, ask questions so you don't waste your time with non-potentials. All right, y'all, make sure that you like and subscribe to the YouTube page, and make sure you download on the podcast, y'all. This your boy 13th Disciple, 13TH, aka the Young John the Baptist. Till next time, go make disciples. Let go.